So, welcome back, those on the live stream. Hopefully, depending on what time of the day there is, hopefully you've also had some sort of food in you.
Australia, what time is it in Australia?
I don't know. I think it's minus 11 hours or plus
goodness,
11 hours. But yeah, we have people from New Zealand and Australia and everything in between. Even Sweden.
Even Sweden.
Yes.
Mom, hi Mom.
So we are rebooting for this afternoon with being Zen on Azure. And this is a talk that's all about continuous delivery and all about App Insights. But somebody already talked about App Insights.
Somebody already did that, yeah.
So what are you going to talk about, Magnus?
I find myself between a rock and a hard place as in I have some of my best friends and hecklers here as co-speakers of this great event. And so I had application insights in my talk. That's gone. I also have probably one of the world's absolute best people in existence on PowerShell present as a speaker as well. So my template piece of this talk is gone. So, well, thank you very much. Not to worry. I do have continuous delivery and how to set that up, that sort of stuff. And then I'm also going to focus more on role-based access control and then also to have the finer points of web applications on Azure. So,
Perfect.
We always have plenty to talk about these types of crazy
You always have something to talk.
I always have something to say.
Perfect. So, let's get started.
Yes, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Hi, it's great to be here, and I have the privilege of guiding you through your after lunch slump. So when you fall asleep, I'll come over and nudge you carefully, and I'll bring you coffee, and that'll be nice, Did this ever happen to you? Your boss came into your office, said, I'd like a new demo environment, and I need it now, because we have a customer demo in the afternoon, right? Because, if your boss wants a demo environment tomorrow, he will swing by tomorrow, right? Isn't that the case? Always? Always happens. And so here's how testers sound. We need the latest build on the test server because otherwise those points won't be part of the sprint goal. That's pretty much what they sound like in my ears anyway. I know that's pretty mean, but, And then someone, I don't know who, it wasn't me, it was the one-armed man, deployed the development connection string to production. Who here has not ever deployed the development connection string to production? Yeah, I got no hands. One! Yeah, right, so you're not a developer then. Right. So back when Azure was called Windows, they had to rebrand it from Windows because otherwise a Linux box in Azure would be a Windows Azure Linux machine. It would be really weird. So they changed it to Microsoft Azure instead. But when it was called Windows Azure, deployment times were, they were pretty sucky. And pretty much if anything went wrong, something went wrong, so I guess I got to fiddle with some random things and do a new deployment and see if it works better, But a lot of that has changed. A lot of that has changed for us, all to the better, which is brilliant. So now we can do more fast deployments, and we get some error checking. And even in some cases, depending on what you're doing, you can actually get your deployment to roll back on its own if something is wrong. So it's gotten much better. So what we're going to talk about today is how to make these problems that we have kind of go. I know, I'm being mean to testers. Any testers in the room? Nobody wants to raise their hand to that one now. Yeah, I'm being mean. I'm sorry. But, we want to make those people go away, and we want to, right? We want to get into, a good development flow without the stress of all those, simpletons knocking on our door, wanting things. We want to be able to do our thing. That's what we want. So how do we get there? That's the question. I want to start with you guys. How many in the room have a production deployment in Azure? Production. That is a significant amount. This number is going up by the not week, but yeah, I guess it does. But, every time I ask this question, it's more hands in the air or more percentage of the audience. So the cloud is going forward. And we want to know how to use it well, of course. I guess you know my name is Magnus Martinsson. I was the first one to be an Azure MVP in the Nordic countries. Ha! Saki. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. And so I've been there for the duration. I've been there for a long time. When it had baby illnesses and stuff, I've been wiping its nose when it was feeling cranky. And now Azure is much better. I'm also what Microsoft call a regional director. It's really weird. I don't work for Microsoft. Let's be upfront. Let's be very clear about that. I don't work for Microsoft. I will say good things about Microsoft. I think I've drunken my fair share of Microsoft Kool-Aid, but fine. I don't work for Microsoft. I don't really have a region, and I don't direct anything. But the regional directors are people who are very, very close to Microsoft. We have their ear, so to say. We're very fortunate to be able to have that and to talk to them very closely. So if you have any very difficult questions, let me see what I can do. Anyways, I do run my own company, Loftysoft. That's my company, and I'm very happy about that. I also have to bring something up. I'm so disappointed that you didn't do that, Saki. What's up with that? What? This is community. Let's talk about community. You're running the show this year in Helsinki? Yes. All right, awesome. So every year, 5 years running now, we run the Global Azure Bootcamp. So while we're on the live stream, it's always good to say that. Anyone can organize this. And that's the beauty of it. Anyone who has a group of people who want to come together on this specific day and talk about Azure and have fun, everybody else is doing it at the same day, pretty much. There's over 10,000 attendees at this thing. So it's individual user groups, all of these, and each individual group will do whatever they like, but they will learn about Azure on this day. So anyone can go to this website and sign up, and I urge you guys to do that. I'm pointing at you on the live stream. Do it. It'll be awesome. So this, I keep this now, this picture, because it's a couple of years old, and I like this kind of vintage at this time. But the thing about this picture that I love the most, well, honestly, I think it's Brian Harry, because he's awesome. But the second most thing that I love about this picture is there's a word, right? There's continuous flow here. That's the key point, the key thing to think about. We are doing things all the time, continuously. Hopefully we are being productive some of the times. So let's try to find a way to be more productive more of the times, to continuously do stuff which is great. That means we need to get rid of distractors and other things that keep blocking us. We need to get that out of our way so that we are able to be awesome all the time. All right? And because we need to live as we learn and teach what we preach and whatever saying there is, we need to do this using demos. So I will try as much as I can to stay in demos. I will skip over the parts where it's application insights and the stuff that's been covered by the other people in this conference. But let's see what we got. First, I want to mention ARM, Azure Resource Management, that Alexander is going to talk about in his session. And what ARM is good for is to do, let's see, did I keep those slides? Yes, to do deployments. Over and over again in a controlled way to different environments. That's great. And to organize your resources and sort of keep them together so that you know which resource is what and who's using which resource, so that no longer you go to like your Azure subscription, there's like 150 things there or more, and you go like, that VM there, who's using that VM? Whose is this? Who did that? I don't know. Can we shut it down? The database we got going there, big size database, is actually costing us some money. Is that being used by someone? Beats me. It could be a production thing, could be something that somebody was just testing and then forgot about because, something more fun happened. Somebody came over and showed them a picture of a cat or something, and they forgot about it. And now it's just hanging out there in the subscription, actually costing money. So that's what ARM is really good for. And also to manage and control access to resources. It kind of groups things together, and you can put like a group in your AD, and you'll put some users in there. I'll show you this later. And then those users will have access to specific resources that they need to work with. So what you need in Azure is a resource group, and I had slides for this, but I think I removed them. A resource group is what you need. It's like an empty bucket into which you will put your Azure resources. So you go provision anything, a database, a virtual machine, anything. It always has to be in a resource group. And it's good because you get like a little circle in which you can apply access control to, for instance. So ARM is for templates, and Alexander will show you a lot more about templates. I do also have a template because, you know, you're supposed to be doing template deployments. It's really cool. So here is our magical template. Behold. First we go to Azure. I love full screen mode. I mean, full screen mode rocks, especially when you're doing presentations. So here's full screen mode, my resource groups. I focused on a few empty subscriptions there. That's the one which is in there is a backup in case something goes wrong. I always have it there. But there's nothing here. So I will go and create myself what I just said, a resource group, an empty bucket, into which we will create our application in a second, okay? So going over to, what do we do first? Let's go and look at the actual thing we are deploying. This is a template, okay? This is a template. This is, I'm now looking at this in case you want to know, this is Visual Studio Code in full screen mode. So this is a template. Is it big enough for you guys? You can see? Yeah, you're pretty close to the screens. Good. And this template will deploy two resources because you need two resources to have a website or a web application. The reason I say website is because if you look underneath the covers, if you look underneath the covers on websites, the resource type of a web app, if you would provision a web app in Azure, the resource type of that underneath the covers in this ARM model is a Microsoft.web/site or sites. It's funny because it used to be called websites, and then I guess that wasn't hip anymore, so they rebranded websites into web apps because it's all about the apps. So what we see in the portal as web apps actually is a website. And there's another really fun thing here that I like. Every web app needs to be inside of a they call it an app service plan, so that you can scale it into many instances, into decide which size of web or machine runs your code. So when you look underneath the covers, that which is called an app service plan in the portal is actually indeed a Microsoft.web/server farms. So it's a server farm. But I guess when, you know, all tech guys know what a server farm is, awesome, server farm, we know what that is. And then some marketing guy took a look at that. What do you mean farm? Farm? I mean, that's, no. We got to call it something cooler than that. So let's make up a name that doesn't exist and call it an app service plan so that all the tech guys are confused, but it looks good. Yeah. So actually, what I can do with this template, and again, I'll defer lots of more talk about template to Alexander, is that I can deploy it. And PowerShell ISE does not have full screen mode. I apologize. But I can still deploy stuff with it, which is good. So I'll use my template files, and then I'll make a deployment. In fact, let me show you one more thing real quick. Let me show you the parameters also, so you know what to expect from my deployment. I will get a size S1 machine. Size S1 means that, and I'll show you that in the portal, that it can have what we call slots. And slots are really good for deployments. You can have a staging slot to stage your deployments, and then you can roll those into production by using the concept of switching the application slots. So that's good. So we'll get one of those machines of size S1. So first, let's create our empty bucket in Azure. That's done. If we go over to Azure and refresh this guy, we now have a Zen on Azure resource group, which I just created in Azure. It's empty. It's an empty place to put our stuff. And let's go then and do our deployment there. So now it's, I guess I'm in the wrong, all right, I'm in the wrong folder. I should have, let me just get out of there, and it'll probably work better. I was referring to my templates, so yeah, that's better. You have to actually be in the right path. So now that I am on the right path of things, we should be soon seeing our web application show up here. So deploying web applications, deploying anything to Azure is really a breeze if you do it the right way, which is, honestly, in my opinion, using templates. Here we go. We have an app service plan and an app service. And so let's drill into that and make sure, because there's a fine point about how we're going to be using slots here for our deployments. So we don't have any deployment slots yet, but the size of our application, change app service plan. This link actually links over to our app service plan, which is a little funny. So, oh God, and it works really well too. Let's go over to our app service plan instead and look at the scale on that thing instead. Scale up is how we change the size. And if you look at it's indeed deployed as an S1 standard, which was in my template. And now I have up to 5 separate slots that I can use. If I choose a smaller size, I don't get any slots. So that's the smallest size you have to choose to get these deployment slots that we're going to use in a while. So we have our template and we have done our deployment, right? So now I'm going to tell you a secret, a really good secret, actually. So pay attention. If we head on over to, wow, that wanted me to sign in, so I'll go to the other browser where I already have this. If you head on over to the Azure Resource Explorer, that's resources.azure.com, you can start to explore the stuff that you have deployed to Azure and look around and see what kind of things you have there. So for instance, well, I have the one that I just deployed. But just to be safe, let's use one which has been there for a long time. And don't ever browse to my corporate web page because it's really embarrassing. It's ugly. But if I drill down to my subscription down here, I will find the deployment for my company's corporate web application. It's right down here. So I go into here's my application. And when I click down, all the way down in this structure, down to my application, you can see the template which correlates to my corporate web application. That's the template which would deploy my application, or my resource, I'm sorry, the resource for my application. And here's the secret I want to show you. You're looking at this this URL here. You see that we're on management.azure.com, and then whack subscriptions. And this is my unique subscription ID. It's not a secret or anything. That's the ID, that's the identity of my subscription. And I said we needed everything to be in a resource group. So the next whack is resource groups. And then there's my resource group that I use, Loftysoft Corporate. And then after that, we have inside of our resource group, we put our resources, right? So then it goes to whack providers. And I get my Microsoft.web/sites. That's the thing that is the type of my homepage, and then the name of it is Loftysoft. So what did we just see? Think about this. Well, first of all, it's a URI, right? It's a universal identifier for a unique one for my application. No other application in Azure or resource in Azure has this identifier. Good. Moreover, it's actually a URL as well, right? Because we're on the management domain, so we can actually do management operations against this thing, against the HTTP, do HTTP calls against the REST API, which is exposed here. But and that's all good. That's practical and good. But the thing I want you to take away from this is that Azure is actually not so scary and daunting and strange, because it really is. If let's say one subscription with all the resource groups and all the resources being leaves, one subscription is then a tree, right? It's a tree. It's nothing else. And then if you have multiple subscriptions, you have your little forest going. Okay? So quite literally, Azure is a forest. You thought it was clouds. It's not. It's a forest. So it's trees. And every tech person know what a tree is. And now you understand, like, this is how you address your resources. It's not complicated. It's not strange. It's not dangerous. It's just a tree. We've done that always. So I just wanted to show you that because I think it's really awesome. And what you can do down here you can do like figure out how to do HTTP requests against your application. You can do posts and deletes and stuff. Let me just quickly show you because I think this is fun. If I go in and look at start, I have start and stop commands here. And if I scroll to the right, you can see that I can do, it's like dual scrolling here. Let me zoom in for you guys. If I do my URL or URI or URL /start or /stop, I can actually do a start or stop request on my web application, which will effectively take it offline and start it up again. So I can do that against the REST API, but don't be afraid, because I'm also signed in with my corporate identity. So you actually have to be someone who has access and is allowed to do that, which I am. But it's pretty cool that you can do this. Actually, I enjoy this a lot. It's all here, including some documentation and stuff. But that's the secret about Azure, really. It's little known fact that people are not very aware of. Right, so let's publish our application to the cloud. And I do believe that I actually didn't open up the code here. So let's get ourselves a Visual Studio. I forgot about that, sorry. And open up the code. I have a little code project which I use for application insights demos. Fine, so we're not doing that. But it's a little web application that we are going to deploy to Azure. In a minute. First we need Visual Studio to wake up. And as you all know, Visual Studio also has a full screen mode, so hey. So how you all doing? Yeah, nice weather we're having.
It's busy.
I know. It's really busy.
You didn't know.
Yeah, right. Thanks. Thank you very much. Let's go back to deploying it in a little while. Let's instead head over to Visual Studio Team Services and set up a project space for our code, because we need a place for our code to be executing. So while Visual Studio is maybe opening up, I don't think so. I think we're going to have to kill this one and come back to it. I don't know. Hopefully I'll be able to do a deployment. In fact, yeah, we don't actually need to do a deployment from the client side. We can do it from the server side. So if this doesn't work, we'll just forget about it. So let's head on over to the Team Services portal. So I like this. You should get, if you don't have this already, you should get it. So I have loftysoft.visualstudio.com. I also happen to have magnus.visualstudio.com, so you should get like your name before it's taken, and then just get your subdomain on visualstudio.com. So this is my corporate, and I have almost only demo stuff in here, but I have a lot of projects in here that I use for demos. So let's create another one, why don't we? And let's do Igloo, so that I remember to delete that later. And create an empty project space in Visual Studio Team Services for our new project. And that usually only takes a few seconds. What we get, of course, is a space where we can put our source code. We can do our project planning and then assign tasks to people, all that stuff, all that good stuff. Literally, this is the hosted version of the Team Foundation server, but on steroids. So, in fact, TFS is still awesome in many ways, but this is the service version of that. So this is why we love it. Let's see how it's doing here. Let's see how the internet is doing. It's doing something. Let's head on over to the work tab if I can there. Backlogs it goes to. Okay, we'll see how it goes with the internet. All right, here we go. So if I wanted to do like agile planning and stuff, I can really do that quickly here. I can do like begin talk. I think we've done that. It's active. I think that's resolved. So let's do that over there. And then we can like set up continuous integration. Cool. We need to do that. That's what we're doing right now. So I can do all this with swim lanes and agile planning and that sort of stuff in here. If I want to, there are a couple of different templates you can choose from, and it's quite customizable. Of course, you don't have to use this. You can use whatever system you are using already. That works good too. But let's go over to some code. I don't have any code yet. Let's see if Visual Studio is... yeah, no, not happening. So let's do a command line thing instead. Let's make sure we copy that properly. And then do Let's get ourselves a nice little Git shell there. Good to have backups. Oh, I need to say Git first. So Git, clone, and this thing. We'll get a folder called Igloo. That's good. So now I'm getting that code down onto my machine because my PowerShell is authenticated against my Visual Studio Team Services. You appear to have cloned an empty repository. Yes, I know. And I guess now that we have that, we'll have to copy some stuff into it. We'll just leave the deployment from Visual Studio. We'll just forget about that because, you know, web publish, web deploy, we know what that is. We'll just not do that in this demo. We'll hop straight into, so here's my sample code. It's a little web application. And I'll just bring the git ignore file over as well. And these things. I think we're good to go with that. So if I go over to the Igloo folder, which is empty, just says, has a Git folder, and I copy my stuff over there. This is the equivalence of file new, let's build a project. So I'll put my code in here and see what we have. Oh, actually I need to go to Igloo and see we got some stuff in there. So git status. We got some stuff in there. Okay, great. So let's add that and push that in. Command line, that's awesome. Initial, blah, blah, blah. Right? So here's the code, and then I'll do git, I always like to do git remote, rename, origin, LoftySoft, because that makes me feel much better. So then I can say git push LoftySoft master. Yes, because I like to say LoftySoft master. It just feels right.
GTI.
GTI. That's a new one. You know, like Git. So let's push the code into our repo. Okay. So now we have some code up in Azure, or not in Azure actually. We have it in the Visual Studio Team Services thing, but hopefully that'll work because otherwise my demo's going to really suck. Now, actually, I do have the code there as well, so if in case this doesn't work either, internet connectivity?
Yeah, I think that's fault here.
I am connected, but yeah, something is not really playing ball. And it's not as, you know, fancy if I can't do a push from my client here, and but we'll still get the gist of it. But anyway, so now we have the code. We have a team project in Azure. It's all there. Now what we want to do is we want to set up the continuous integration deployment. And there are two ways to do that. One is to go in from the portal and say, I just want to set everything up just magically and don't tell me how you did it. It's just get it done. And that works. It works great. But I want to go in through the Azure portal instead. Go in from the Visual Studio Team Services entry and go down under build and release.
I think it was pushing.
I think it was pushing, yeah? Yeah, okay, good, cool. So let's make sure we actually have the code in our repo. Seems like we do, that's great. That's what we wanted. I can always hand edit a file and do a push later. But if we go under build and release and define ourselves a release, a build and release on when we do check-ins. So of course this is, you know, geared to be like click, 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 because I'm just doing the default stuff and it always works. It's nice when you're doing demos to get an effective demo going. So if I just click through that, there's one more thing I'll need to configure, and that is to explain to my Visual Studio Team Services repository which web app am I intending to deploy against. So if I go and say, I'd like to go to, I believe I used my RD subscription. I would like to authorize, that is to set up an authorization for Visual Studio Team Services to deploy to this web application in Azure. That needs to be authorized. And hopefully that'll work. Let's see. Usually, yeah, that seemed to work. And then I can get, oh, that's not that one. Is it? No. Yeah, it actually is. Let me show you which one that is so you won't get confused. Let's go back to the portal and take a look at what application we actually deployed. So you see the application name that I chose for my web application is that Magnus Demo 42 and some characters. Okay? You know that when people say that we developers are strange because we don't start counting as everybody else starts 1, 2, 3, we go 0, 1, 2, 3. It's actually not true. We go 42, 43, 44. Isn't that right? We're 42 indexed. We're not 0 indexed. That's stupid. So we're 42 indexed. So my application is based out of the first one I deployed, which is 42. Right, so this application is the one that I am connecting to in case, so now you know where that name came from. I'm deploying to that. Yeah?
Here you have configured the connection with the Azure. Can you please explain this one because there is a authentication between...
Yeah, there's an authentication that happens, yes. So there's an authentication that happens between Visual Studio Team Services and Azure. So in order for anyone, any process, or any person to be allowed to deploy to Azure, they actually have to have access rights to go into Azure. And we'll talk more about access stuff later, so I don't want to go there now. Now, I could deploy this to the master, but I really want to deploy to a slot instead. I want to set up a slot, and hopefully we'll have time to do all this stuff that I have planned in my demo here. So let's set up deployment slots, because deploying continuously straight into production, while that could sound a little bit sexy, it's also quite scary. So, let's try to not be so scary. Instead, let's get ourselves a staging slot. That's like you have the production slot, and then right next to it you have another web application which has a slot called staging, and you can deploy into that instead. And then you can browse to that staging slot as well, because it's actually a real web application. So if I browse to it, you will see like here's an empty page. And also for the we don't have this is the default. There's an empty slot to deploy to. And if I go to the other one, the production version, it's also empty at this time. So if I go to that other URL, it's going to be equally empty because I made 0 deployments so far. But back in Team Services, I will now say I want to deploy to a slot and get me. It's funny how it makes me choose a resource group there, but I really don't know why. But I can choose my staging slot. So now that I've configured my deployment, my continuous deployment, I need to give it a name and some description, I guess. I've configured this whole thing to be ready to do my deployments. So let's actually kick one off from in here. Usually you would push code from your machine from the developer box, and that would kick off the build and stuff. But you can actually launch one from in here as well. We'll let that run because it takes a few minutes to run. But everything is set up for us, and if all goes well, this should actually just go and deploy things, and it should be beautiful, and we will see a deployment to our application slot there. Okay? Right. So the thing is, though, that I have full power to do all this. I can do all of that. And there's more to be said about this, but, I'd like to take a minute and think about changes, right? When stuff changes. Now, as human beings, we're not really geared up to love changes. I was talking about deploying to production. That is scary stuff. It's kind of like when wagons started rolling down the streets on their own without a horse, right? It's these were scary things because they were automatically able to be mobile on their own. They were automobiles. I was really, really scared about these things. So sometimes they'd put a horse's head on them and like a whip holder for the whip, so that yeah. But human beings don't like change. But this stuff is very obvious. I mean, if you look at the productivity behind this, there is no possible way that anyone can come to me and say, yeah, we're not doing this continuous integration stuff in Azure because, we don't think it's worth it. No. A really, really, really big furniture company from Sweden, I'm not going to say which one, they have lots of test servers of their own, and many big companies do. They're maintaining lots of test infrastructure. And why, right? I don't care if you don't deploy to your production to Azure or to, the cloud, could be any other cloud, but please, testing, development, it's a no-brainer, folks. It really is. What we want is this. We want to achieve a production line. We want to make sure that it's all streamlined, that it's always working, and it's just brilliant and beautiful. So, 3 little words, just, keep in mind. And whenever anybody says automate, you got to say automate, automate. Because when you say automate, you have to say it 3 times all the time. So automate, automate, automate. And everything that can be automated must be automated. It's a great quote by me. So continuous delivery. Let's go back to our little demo and see what's going on. We got it running now. It's been waiting for a while to get on a hosted build agent. So while I was talking, it was just actually sitting back, waiting, not doing much. But now it's doing the NuGet stuff, and it's going to be building my solution. It's going to run my tests, and it's going to do a deployment to our environment. And you literally saw me set this up inside of 5 minutes. I mean, come on. It is that simple. Of course, you can get very much more sophisticated than the default thing, next, finished that I did, but it really is quite effective. This should be the first thing you set up when you do a new project, always. Oh, wait. Huh. Seems to be a problem here. That's embarrassing. Let's look at the test logs. There seems to be a test which is failing. Okay, let's look at that test. Let's have a look at this with Visual Studio Code. Let's have a look at the test which is failing, because normal Visual Studio was not really playing ball. There's a test broken. Seems I have some unit tests. Okay, there's a test called obvious, which is failing. It says that a true win equals 1. No, that's not right. That can't be. No, of course, a true win is 42. So, okay, a true win is 42. That's the actual winner. So let's change that file and save it, which means that back in our Git here we have a change. Good. Let's do a Git add and do a Git commit. And let's do a really good check-in comment. Let's see, fixed the test. That actually works if you have only one test. It's very clear. And let's see if push for one file actually works here. And it seems to be doing that. And that should mean, folks, that back in Azure, our CD demo thing should have kicked off a new build, because, I just pushed some code. So it just now happened something. Okay. So yes, indeed, we have a failing build because the tests failed in our last build, and obviously that halted the whole thing, so we didn't get a deployment because there was a failing test. So now we have fixed the test, and the next deployment should hopefully work just fine. Okay? So just out of the box, we get literally doing no maintenance, no setting anything complicated up at all. We get push the code, we get builds, we get unit tests, we get deployments, and just almost hands-free. Super. Application Insights, let's jump over that. The thing I do want to say about Application Insights is that you have to measure, then cut. Okay? So if you're not measuring, you really don't know what you are doing. And there's a quote, I need you guys to bring this with you home. I love this quote. It's really good. Dr. H. James Harrington is kind of a legend when it comes to testing and that sort of stuff. Measurement is the first step that leads to control and eventually to improvement. If you can't measure something, you can't understand it. If you can't understand it, you can't control it. And if you can't control it, you can't improve it. There is no way of doing anything professionally without measuring if it's actually successful or not. And then we have this whole application lifecycle thing that we're working our way through right now, where Application Insights is a big part of that, or something similar. It doesn't actually have to be the Microsoft product, but a product which does this. What we do have is this cycle that keeps happening all the time. We have something that we are developing, it gets put into production, and down there, those gears and stuff, that's the automation place. You do that automatically or not at all, in my opinion. And then you have a production cycle that happens where you collect all the telemetry, the stuff that Martin was showing you, using some fancy framework to collect all your stuff so that you can learn about your application, so that you can look at your stuff and then get new requirements into the backlog, fix bugs, and have this cycle going all the time. The way to do this with speed and confidence is automation and monitoring. Put that in place. When you have that, you can move so much better and faster and more confidently with your application development. So let's talk about security. Because when I'm setting things up, I'm like the owner of the subscription. I have access rights to do anything. I can do whatever I want inside of my subscription. That's fine. I have full access. But let's see that I hire somebody, or let's see that my firm takes in a subcontractor, a consultant, somebody from the outside. Well, then that person may not have the same level of trust. Maybe that person should be allowed to see what is in production, but maybe not modify it. That's probably a good thing. And also, if you think about it, not only for security in case somebody wants to steal your stuff or something, not only that, but also for the ability to move around in Azure without being afraid of breaking something, you know? It's like walking like with one child in each hand, and then you realize you have a third child and you're going into a glass store. You know, something is going to break. You really don't want that to happen. So to be able to feel secure, you kind of need at least one more parent there to hold on to something. And it's similar with Azure. You want to be able to set it up so that developers feel that they can't break things accidentally. You know, oh, I meant to run that script on the development database. Oh, shoot. I did it on the production one. I picked the wrong one. Silly me. Yeah, that should never be able to happen. So how do we set that up with access control? In my company, there's a guy who works there. He's pretty awesome. He's really good with demos. And I'm going to give him access to this environment. So let's first go and make sure that he's part of the project. So I'll go to that sort of the top level, my resource group with all the resources. He's allowed to see everything that's going on. So let's give him read access to the whole thing. You go in under access control, and you say, well, let's add soon. Let's add him. Let's see if we can find a good role for him. Yeah, reader. That's good. Then he can't break stuff. Okay, cool. Reader, and this guy who works for me, his name is Demo Dave. He is really, really good with demos, this guy, I gotta tell you. You should all have him employed. So Demo Dave works at my company. It's demo@loftysoft.com. So here he is now assigned as a reader into this project. Which now means that if I go and get myself a trusty, let's do an in-private browsing and go to, in a different browser session here, and go to portal.azure.com, and we'll sign in as Demo Dave and see what he can see now. And let's see if I can remember his password. You should really go and brand your sign-in experience with your company logo and stuff. That's also advisable. So Demo Dave is signing into Azure, and let's figure out what he is allowed to see. So if we go to Demo Dave's resource groups, you can see a few of my demos here, but he can see the new resource group which we just assigned him to. He couldn't see it before, so I guess I should have showed you before. But let's drill down into the web application that we're working on here, and see what he can see. I want to show you a specific thing here. Let's see if this is still broken. It's kind of broken-ish. No, it seems all right. So yeah, there you go. This is what I wanted to show you. So by default, the reader of an application can see that the application is there. The reader can see most settings, but by default, a reader is not allowed to see the values of application settings in connection strings. So if he's a reader, he cannot go in and copy the connection string and then connect to the database. That's probably a good thing. You know, if he needs that access, we can grant him that access, but by default, he's not allowed to see that. So he's now a reader, which means that if we had Visual Studio working and I can actually do a deployment or a push as this demo Dave guy, he is not able to do any deployments because he is a reader. So what we need for him to be able to do is do a deployment to our staging environment. That would be great. So, and in fact, we should have our deployment ready in the staging environment now. Let's go and have a quick look at that. In the other browser window, we had the web application, right? So it is there. No, not that one, the staging one. The staging deployment has hopefully happened by now. From the continuous integration stuff. Let's see. Actually, we maybe should go and see that it is done, but it should be. Did it complete? Yeah, it did. So build succeeded. We have a green build, and we should have a deployment. And since I put it on staging, so there we go. So now we have this demo application deployed to the staging slot. It's in staging. Awesome. So let's pretend that it was Dave who actually did this, but because we can't use Visual Studio from my machine right now, Dave did this deployment. Well, he can't actually before I give him access rights to it. So let's go and do that first to make sure we set up Dave. He's a reader, okay? We'll go and specifically pick the staging slot. So that's a sub-resource underneath my resource group, and all access is inherited downwards. So if he's a reader on the resource group, he's also a reader on all the resources inside there. But we want him to be able to do deployment specifically to the staging area, not to production. So we'll go in here and so you see it's inherited. There, it's an inherited access that he's allowed to read, while Demo Dave needs to be able to do deployments. So let's make him a contributor in this case. There are some built-in roles. You can do custom ones. So let's make Demo Dave a contributor to our staging area. So now that he's getting deployment access, we can now, for appearance's sake, we can go and pretend that he was the guy who did that deployment that we saw. So we have a staged deployment in staging, and now the next step is to swap that into production. Okay, so let's see if Demo Dave do that. So he'll go over to the staging area, and he is keen on doing. We'll have to actually refresh now because he got contributor access to the staging area, which means that if you saw that in the GUI there before, I could not do the swapping action because he did not have that action before. So if everything is right now, Demo Dave should be able to swap, and he actually can't, which is good, but I wanted to show you the exception here. Does not seem to be working right now, but Demo Dave is, he has full access or should be having full access to the staging area so that he can do deployments and changes to that. He can scale it, he can set connection strings, he can do whatever he likes in there. But we want him to swap to production, and he's only reader in the production environment, which means that the system will not allow him to do that. You're not allowed, sorry, not happening. So going back to my demo on setting that up, role-based access control, I can do something really fun. I can is nothing working now? Hello. Yeah, it's working. Good. I can read any services specific access operations from Azure and see for this role, what are the things that I could do? What are the things that this role gives me, grants me access to be able to do? So it does things like you can do, see where the swapping action is. It's somewhere in here. I copied it out because it's not very long, the list, but it seems like there's a Microsoft.web/sites/slot swap action, which is a specific action to be allowed to swap. So what we really want to do is create a custom role. Let's bring down a role from Azure, and then let's modify it and give it a new name, Web App Swapper. Okay? And then we'll clear out all the actions you're allowed to do, and we'll specifically put the actions of slot swap and swap even between slots. as access roles, as access to this thing. And so let's just execute this whole thing and see me create that, I think, down to here. This creates the role. Let's see, did I get it? Hopefully. There is something which is very funky on my machine now. It could be the internet connectivity that which is, playing with us. Let's make sure that that gets executed. Oh, so it already exists. That's fine. The idea is, if everything works the way it should, is that we should be able to go to back to our resource group. No, not as Demo Dave, as me. We should be able to go back to my resource group, and for this scope only, for this resource group scope, where Demo Dave is a part of our team, I should be able to go in and say, well, you, and the thing is, before, I didn't actually see this thing in here before, you should get web swapper role here, Demo Dave. So you're here as a reader, but we also need to give you an additional role. Hopefully it shows up in the list. There's something wrong here. So unfortunately it's not going to show up here, but I did this demo yesterday, and I don't know what's wrong with, connectivity and stuff in this building, but I'm not going to make excuses. Normally, there would be one new icon showing up here, showing a yellow box instead of that blue one, and it has the name of the role that I created, and I can assign that specific role to Demo Dave, which will then effectively give him read access to the production environment, plus he actually has this special access to be allowed to publish or to swap the demo environment into production. So when that works, which he can't do now, when that works, this is what it's going to look like. I'll go back to this thing, and I can go to my web application, like this. And I can say, okay, so I have something in staging. I would now like to swap that into production. And that's the action which would specifically be granted to Demo Dave. And he can then do swapping with production and staging, for instance. And we'll just say swap. And that will swap those two deployed applications. It's just a configuration change inside of the IIS on the box which is hosting this, which will effectively put one in the place of the other and vice versa. So without any downtime, we can move a staged deployment into production. Okay? And we can grant specific access here. And that's the key. So I guess we got a little bit slowed down here by the... let me jump to like the last slide instead. Yep. This actually almost was the last slide, which is cool. I don't know that we have any time for questions.
Yeah, you do.
I do? I have time for questions. Okay, so we got the question guy. Any questions, thoughts?
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
Is it so that if you have a Azure subscription,
Yeah.
and let's say you are a global optimist,
Yeah.
then you have a customer,
Yeah.
and the Visual Studio services and the code is located in your subscription,
Yeah.
and the customer has the other subscription, which includes the website. Can you build an automatic deployment process from subscription to other subscriptions?
Sure. So the question is can you if your customer has a subscription and you have the code, or vice versa, if things are coming from different directions, is that possible? Yes, of course.
Is it possible only with Git, or is it possible also with TFS?
Is it possible only with Git or with TFS also? So everything that you see that I showed with Visual Studio Team Services using Git as source repository is absolutely doable with TFS. I'm not exactly 100% certain which things are out of the box super simple and which needs a little bit more love and configuration. But for sure, as long as you can authenticate against whatever subscription you are deploying to, you can deploy from whatever source control you want. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay, because I was trying it last December and it wasn't possible.
All right. Well, let's have a look at the details of that. But I mean, it's all about the authentication and authorization. If you're able to authenticate with the AD which controls access to that subscription, and then you're able to have the access rights to do that deployment, sure, you can set it up. Absolutely. Yes, you can.
Yeah, I have to agree with Magnus here, because it doesn't feel like the build and release of VSTS should be connected to the code repository itself.
No.
It shouldn't be. But of course, VSTS is quite new, so there are bugs. So it's interesting if you run into one of those to know. But what Magnus said, that should be the spirit.
Generally speaking, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Cool. Additional questions, thoughts?
No, ask Magnus. Ask Magnus.
Additional questions, thoughts, personal attacks, anything? No? All right, let's move to the very last slide. You should always automate, and then monitor stuff, learn about your applications, and be awesome continuously. And in case you really want to do a training course on this, I do have one of those. And I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks, mate.
Is this on? Oh,
yes, it's on.
I got to press the button. All right, thanks, Magnus.
Thanks, mate.
Excellent. So, next up we have Alexander about Match Made in Heaven. That I remember. Something. ARM template and PowerShell DSC, a match made in heaven. Alexander, so this is probably to whom? Did you point to Alexander about the PowerShell guruness? Yeah, exactly. So we now have 5 to 10 minutes or so